So welcome, thank you for being here. My name is Deborah Jacobs and I serve as Director for the King County Office of Law Enforcement Oversight, which we call OLEO. Thank you all. We're here to introduce a new guide to law enforcement on transit, which the public can reference to understand which law enforcement agencies they might encounter on transit, the purpose of their presence, and other information about them. OLEO decided to join the call for National Transit Equity Day because advancing fair and equitable police practices is central to our mission. When OLEO heard from people who have experienced fear and anxiety when interacting with law enforcement on transit, we sought to produce a guide that could help remove barriers and allow people to travel on transit safely and without fear. This is the English version of our publication, and we also have it currently in Spanish and Chinese, and we'll expand to other languages as needed. Safe and accessible transit systems are a tremendous factor in ensuring the social mobility of individuals and communities. One of the biggest fears that we've been hearing about is the possible presence of ICE on transit. I want to make it clear that although there are sometimes Homeland Security officers for anti-terrorism purposes on transit, to our knowledge, none of the agencies that provide police services on public transit in King County collaborate with ICE. We hope that the information we provide today, which is currently available, as I said, in English, Spanish, and Chinese, will empower transit riders and alleviate anxiety when seeing and interacting with law enforcement on transit. We are fortunate to live and work in a place like King County where equity has many champions. You will hear from some of our community partners with us today, as well as elected officials. First, I want to acknowledge King County Council Chair Claudia Balducci, who will say a few words.
Thank you. Good morning, welcome everyone, and I want to acknowledge and thank our Office of Law Enforcement Oversight at King County for creating this opportunity in celebrating National Transit Equity Day, which occurs not coincidentally on the birthday of Rosa Parks, who was one of the most famous champions for access for transit for everyone. As the chair of the King County Council and a Sound Transit board member, I'm extremely proud of Metro and Sound Transit's work to provide great transit across our region, but also to focus on access and making sure everyone can get on that transit and use it. Transit is important. It provides transportation freedom for people. It is often the quickest and it's always the cheapest way to get around King County. And we know that good transportation access is one of the key determinants of upward mobility for families in poverty. But we can't take good transit for granted. We have so much more work to do because many communities lack access to frequent and reliable transit. Right now I'm working with my colleagues on the County Council and other partners to build a proposal that would fund and expand into our transit system and take what we're doing in Seattle and expand it throughout King County. So we would provide much more bus service over time. We know that transit fare enforcement policies can inequitably impact King County's most vulnerable people and our riders. And so that's why last year Metro Transit released and is now implementing a plan to reform fare enforcement practices to provide more equitable options for people. And as a Sound Transit board member, I'm closely following that review of Sound Transit's fare enforcement policies and look forward to doing something more there as well. This is just a short sampling of the work that we're doing every day to make transit more accessible to all. We have big challenges ahead of us so that every day can be Transit Equity Day. But we couldn't do this work without the incredible support and advocacy from many people and groups across King County. Many of them are here today. I'm proud to stand with them and hear from them about the work that they are doing to make transit available to everybody in our community, regardless of their ability to pay, regardless of their background or where they come from. So thank you, Deborah, again, for having us here today, and I really look forward to hearing from everyone else.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Balducci. So glad to have you here and show support. We're very appreciative of our community partners who are here, and you will hear from them today. I also want to acknowledge OLEO. My office is one of 5 independent agencies in the King County Legislative Branch. Another is the Ombuds, and they actually have a special transit Ombuds. So here we have Brian Kamatsi. Hi, Brian. And Brian's work is to investigate and resolve complaints about King County Metro and to recommend improvements to Metro's policies and procedures with a particular service on quality for people with disabilities. So please know that he's a resource for the public. And first person we'll hear from our community partners, sorry about this, is Kiko Budek from Transportation Choices Coalition. Did I say your name right? Welcome, Kiko.
Hi, so my name's Keiko. I'm at Transportation Choices Coalition, an advocacy and policy nonprofit here in Seattle. We cover Washington statewide policy work. So like clean water and healthy food, transportation is a basic need. All people need access to safe, affordable, and reliable transportation to get to work, to school, and to connect with each other. That's why transportation equity is an urgent issue in our region and in communities everywhere, and why we are here with community partners and agency partners today. We must acknowledge historic and systemic impacts to our transportation system in order to build a better one that works for all. Improving transportation equity connects more people to opportunity. We have a long way to go to achieve transportation equity, from ensuring that folks have reliable bus routes that take them where they need to go, to ending disparities among people injured while walking and biking, who are disproportionately people of color and people with disabilities. But TCC is proud to have worked with partners, community members, elected officials, and agencies to improve a very visible and impactful part of our Metro Transit service, the fare enforcement system. After an audit revealed significant disparities in enforcement for people with low or no incomes and people of color, Metro, the King County Executive, and King County Council listened to our feedback and moved quickly to adopt an alternative fare violation resolution process and administer fare citations in-house, separating fare citations from the court system. The new King County Metro program seeks to connect those who haven't paid their fare with information on how to pay or with reduced fare programs rather than issuing citations that could end in collections. Metro collected surveys with riders who could not show proof of payment and found that more than half were below 200% of the poverty level. Although we are proud about the development of the new fare enforcement programming, there are still steps needed to address underlying issues that make it difficult for people to pay for a transit trip. That is why we advocated for Metro to explore a very low income fare program. And we can report that the program design is well underway, and we are now looking at how to fund and support its implementation. It is urgent that we continue work like fare enforcement reform, and that we look for upstream solutions like ensuring people can afford their fares in the first place. The development of racial and social equity programs leads to more accessible choices and serves more people. We are honored to celebrate the journey we are all on together to create an equitable transportation system for all people. Thanks.
Thank you. I want to acknowledge another community member who's come. Abiel Woldu is chair of OLEO's Community Advisory Committee for Law Enforcement Oversight, and is here as well. Next up, we have Michael Byun, who is Executive Director of Asian Counseling and Referral Services. And welcome, Michael.
Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Byun again, Executive Director for Asian Counseling and Referral Service. It's important that we're having this press event here for National Transit Equity Day here in the International District, Chinatown. Some will recall in May of 2016, King County passed Ordinance 2016-0199, which revised bus routes, including the 106, which goes through the International District, Chinatown, toward south along the Martin Luther King Jr. Way corridor. The revision to the 106 was significant as it addressed a long-standing and unmet mobility needs, significantly alleviating the barriers for communities of color, low-income folks, and non-English speaking communities who make up the vast majority of the people using the 106. While County Council passed the ordinance, it was the community and our advocacy which made that possible. Asian Counseling and Referral Service stood beside groups like the Refugee Women's Alliance, Filipino community of Seattle, International Community Health Services, and many others to successfully advocate with transit and the county to ensure communities have sufficient access to culturally and language appropriate social services, healthcare, cultural events, family gatherings, places of worship, and businesses along the MLK corridor. The fight for the 106 is an important example of the advocacy for transit equity and the significance of today's release from OLEO of valuable information in language, which is an important step in the right direction. We commend OLEO for taking this step to ensure our communities, regardless of background and status, have a reliable and safe experience to ride to work, school, home, medical appointment, or place of worship. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And we'll be looking to hear from the community served by ACRS and others for other translation needs. So far, we'll have it in Chinese, and we'll seek other interests. Next up, we are honored to have from the Washington State Immigrant Solidarity Network, Montserrat Padilla.
All right. Good morning, everybody. It is an honor and a pleasure to be here joining the King County Office of Law Enforcement Oversight and others this morning to continue ensuring critical access to public transportation for our diverse and thriving communities. My name is Montserrat Padilla. I am the co-director for the Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network. We're a powerful coalition of over 250 organizations in 22 counties. The network came together shortly after the election results in 2016, knowing and understanding that not one single organization could really protect and defend our immigrant and refugee communities, and that it was going to require all of us working together and building together. Today is National Transit Equity Day. We are choosing Rosa Parks' birthday because she is an iconic figure among many of the civil rights era who chose the tactic of refusing to give up her seat on the bus to further advance the dignity and rights of our African American and Black communities in the United States. King County is stronger and healthier when we all work and commute safely side by side with our neighbors. As immigration enforcement increases in Washington State, it is critical to understand the different agencies at play when commuting through public transit and reminding our neighbors that we have rights and to call the Wisen hotline, which is 1-844-724-3737 in case of any immigration enforcement related operations in your daily commute. Currently, we're living under unprecedented times, and what we know to be true is that historically, in any presidential election year, regardless of who's running for president, immigration enforcement is at an all-time high. This year, we can foresee an increase of immigration enforcement, of forceful operations being conducted in our very own backyard in King County, targeting our neighbors, breaking more families by detaining them at the for-profit immigration detention center in Tacoma, and placing them in the deportation pipelines through the Yakima ICE flights. Now more than ever, we must ensure that King County residents understand the different enforcement agencies at play when accessing public transportation. And they must know that in King County, we are leading a robust effort to ensure that immigrant and refugee communities can access much needed public transportation. King County's total population has grown by about 250,000 since 2010. Sorry. Almost half of the growth, 49%, is from people who were born in another country. King County has been in the forefront of protecting immigrants and refugees, especially in this difficult period in our nation. We continue the work we began in 2009 of ensuring that Martin Luther King Jr. County builds a beloved community and makes our region a safe and welcoming community for all. While the current federal administration continues to advocate for policies that seek to disenfranchise and marginalize immigrant and refugee communities, partners must play a vital role in ensuring that King County is a welcoming and affirming place for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Montserrat. Thank you so much. Next up, we'll hear from Katie Wilson of the Transit Riders Union. Welcome, Katie.
Hi. Hello, everyone. My name's Katie Wilson. I'm the General Secretary of the Transit Riders Union.
Many of our members depend on public transit, whether due to a disability, because they're low income, or because they choose not to own a car. We believe that mobility is a human right. It's been almost 65 years since Rosa Parks' actions sparked the Montgomery bus boycott. A lot has changed for the better since then, but also a lot hasn't changed. We still live in a society that is divided along lines of race and wealth and power, and that extends to our transit system. Who is served by it, who can afford it, who feels safe using it. We applaud OLEO's release of this guide to law enforcement on transit as a step forward for transparency. We also know that we need to go much further to achieve transit equity. Transit equity means that getting to work and back home each day should not take up 2 or 3 hours of someone's time and a large chunk of their income. Transit equity means that communities of color and low-income communities should not have to breathe car exhaust and polluted air, suffer from asthma, and die younger than people in wealthier, whiter neighborhoods. Transit equity means that someone riding the train who can't afford a $3 fare should not have an interaction with law enforcement that leads to them spending the night in jail. We have an opportunity here in Seattle and King County to do better. This year, thanks to many of the people and organizations represented here today, we will do better. King County Metro and Sound Transit are considering a no-cost annual transit pass program for the lowest income riders. Metro has made great progress reforming its approach to fare enforcement, and Sound Transit is considering reforms too. And we're pushing the city of Seattle to pass a law requiring that large employers subsidize transit for all their workers so that low-wage workers who need this benefit the most are getting it too. I'm proud to stand here with allies from so many organizations and elected officials that are working for transit equity in our region. Together, we're making progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. And last but certainly not least, we have Carrie Ware from Solid Ground. Thanks, Carrie. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. In the history of our civil rights movement, equitable access to transportation has been a rallying cry and a touchstone for our progress as a community and as a nation. It's so fitting that we gather here today on Transit Equity Day and the birthday of Rosa Parks to celebrate the importance of keeping transportation safe and reliable for all members of the community. Ms. Parks' successful effort focused on equitable access to all seats on the bus. It was a key component in a broad effort to end segregation in public spaces. Everyone deserves safe, easy, accessible transportation, and it needs to work when they need it. For many people living in poverty, public transportation is not a choice. As housing prices continue to rise, people are moving out of the city core and away from jobs and have to rely on public transportation. They might lose their car, leaving public transit their only option. While our transportation systems are improving, they're also getting more complicated. And they need allies in being able to access that transportation. Being able to trust law enforcement to assist without judgment is crucial. The publication today being released by OLEO is a great tool to help transit riders understand the presence of various law enforcement professionals on Metro buses and Sound Transit rail. Our hope is that this information will help counter the anxiety that people feel when approaching or sharing an encounter with law enforcement on public transit. Building a system that provides respect and dignity for all, and it requires law enforcement to connect with the riders on a personal level, not just in a time of crisis, but each and every day. Here in King County, we know the advantage of having a community of law enforcement that works with the communities that they serve. By recognizing local jurisdictions, we hope rider confidence and public trust in the integrity of the local authorities will improve. The bottom line for transit riders is that our local authorities are here to make their experience on public transit safe and help them get where they need to go. I'm grateful to have a partner like OLEO, which was established to foster greater community trust. Together, we're building a shared understanding of what safe transportation means for our community. We're increasing the community trust in law enforcement and working toward equity that moves our communities beyond poverty and oppression. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we'll open it up for questions from any of our folks. Or Councilmember Balducci is here as well. Yeah.
These Homeland Security officers, are they HSI officers in the transit?
You're asking about the Homeland Security officers? They are a unit called Viper, and they are anti-terrorism. I can't answer your question beyond that, but I could check.
Do they follow under ICE? Are they ICE officers?
They are in the Department of Homeland Security. They are not ICE officers.
They don't enforce immigration law?
It's my understanding that none of the law enforcement that come on transit in King County cooperate or collaborate with ICE at all. That's my understanding. The Homeland Security are strictly there for the purpose of anti-terrorism enforcement.
We've also been getting calls about this for years now. Why do this now?
It's something we've been wanting to put together. It took some time and resources to figure it out. The issue first came to OLEO's attention about a year and a half ago, and we started thinking about what could be helpful. I think there's greater conversations to be had in community about the role of law enforcement on transit, but that needs to be also community-led. We're starting by telling you who's there, what kind of clothes they're wearing, what they're there for, how you could complain about them if necessary, and that kind of basic information to hopefully alleviate some of the people's fears. That's the goal of this publication, provide information and make people feel a little more comfortable to be able to have the opportunity to use transit and feel safe there. Other questions?
Are you hearing, or is anyone hearing stories of people who aren't riding transit because they're fearful of the law enforcement they see on transit?
Has anyone heard of people avoiding transit because of fears around it?
Later on in the year of 2019, there was a rumor of immigration custom enforcement on the E-line in the Aurora Avenue Road. Communities in the northern part of Seattle were feared when communities hear that ICE, Immigration Custom Enforcement, is conducting operations in public transportation or anywhere in their neighborhoods. Families are paralyzed, children don't go to school, parents don't go to work, communities go hungry because of the fear that ICE might be accessing or attempting to enter their neighborhoods. Luckily, we rapidly mobilized along with our partners in King County and King County Metro to ensure and document if there was any immigration enforcement operations in the E-line. It came out to be a rumor and someone working from a place of fear because they might have come across a fair enforcement agent who they might have confused. And so this information is critical to ensure that people understand what are the agencies at play when they're using public transportation. And when people see Department of Homeland Security, in this moment we've worked with King County and various offices to ensure that what they're doing there is anti-terrorism activity. There has been no documentation that they've collaborated or intend to collaborate with Immigration Custom Enforcement. And we appreciate every single resident of King County who continues to report their presence in our public transit. We should not normalize this activity. However, they're not there to do Immigration and Custom Enforcement activity.
Other questions for our panelists?
This may take some backtracking, so bear with me. Should riders of King County and Sound Transit be concerned in the here and now, like right now, that ICE officers could be on board surveilling people?
So you asked whether riders should be worried about ICE enforcing on transit. It's our understanding that there is no ICE present on transit in King County and that the law enforcement agencies that are on transit do not collaborate with ICE.
But is there a legal impediment to ICE getting on if they want to?
I don't know the answer to that. I want to guess at it, but I won't. But we could get back to you to clarify that. Yeah.
What's the whole idea behind the pamphlets? What are you trying to do?
We're just trying to be heard above the sound. No, The idea behind the pamphlet is to provide the public with information so that they understand who they're encountering and who they're working with in terms of law enforcement on transit, and also to alleviate the fears of ICE being on transit so that they can recognize the uniforms that they're seeing, know what the law enforcement presence is for, know where they can express concern if they have complaints or something goes wrong. So it's really a publication It's really a publication intended to help educate the public and address their fears and concerns on National Transit Equity Day and going forth.
How many languages?
Right now we're in English, Spanish, and Chinese, but we're very open to additional translations if there's a need, and we welcome people to contact our office. We are easy to find on the King County website as well.
What is your message about people's rights? When do they not have to speak with any of these officers, including the DHS officers?
I don't. Does anyone feel like they can speak to like the? You know, I think I'm going to ask you. I'm going to give you a reference for someone at the ACLU to talk to about that, because I don't want to get it wrong. But I think generally people's Fifth Amendment rights apply, and there are certain things you have to do and not. So if you let me, after this, I'll hook you up with someone to answer that question. So, any other questions? You're welcome to talk to our guests individually. I know you might want to get some interviews. We have copies of the pamphlets in each of the languages available. Again, we just really want to be here to lift up transit and transit equity so that people feel they can safely go to work, safely bring their kids to school, safely get where they need to go without being needlessly targeted or anything else. So thank you for being here.
One more.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that the pamphlet information is fully accessible online, so a person on a bus could bring it up on their phone?
Yes, it's on the OLEO website, and we'll be continuing to improve it and its accessibility. So it's available online and here in paper today and at the OLEO offices.
Will it be posted on any buses or trains?
We don't have it posted on buses and trains. This is Jenna Franklin. She's OLEO's community engagement manager. She's camera shy, but look, she's here.
We're very fortunate that our partners at Sound Transit and Metro are wonderful and collaborative. Of course, with service change twice a year, there are a lot of people out engaging riders during the March and September service change. We anticipate being out as well, handing out these flyers. We also have engaged over 250 community organizations and shared this information with them. We'll continue to meet with them and share the information, ask them to distribute it within their networks. And as OLEO goes out and gets to know various communities throughout King County, this is an item we anticipate taking with us so that we can facilitate conversations with our community members about the safety aspects of thriving communities, what their concerns are, whether they're transit related or not. We want to make sure we're empowering people to get where they need to go in life on transit every day.
So many thanks to our guests and to Councilmember Balducci, and please feel free to engage them individually as well. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it.